My husband spent my entire third trimester coming home late because his first love was back. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry in front of him. I wrote a book. I wrote the whole year down, every night of my third trimester, while he came home late. It was published 3 weeks before the divorce papers. He read it in 2 days. He called on the third. The call came at 9 in the morning. I was feeding the baby. I saw Owen's name on the screen, and I let it ring twice. Then I answered. "I finished it," he said. "I know," I said. A long silence. The specific silence of a man who has just read 280 pages about himself and is deciding which version of the conversation to enter. "Calla." His voice was careful. "You wrote about us." "I wrote a novel," I said. "Novels are fiction. The husband in the book is a character," I said. "Named differently. Living in a different city. Working a different job." "Calla." "The dedication," I said. "Is that what you called about?" He read it back to me, slowly, as though I didn't know what it said. As though I hadn't spent 40 minutes in a coffee shop in November getting the wording exactly right. To everyone who told me I was too sensitive. "Yes," I said. "I said that to you," he said. "I said it once. Twice," I said. "Year 2 and year 3. Both times you meant it. Both times you meant that what I was reporting didn't match what you were experiencing, and that the error was mine." He said nothing. "I wasn't wrong," I said. "I was accurate. The book is accurate. You can disagree with how it made you feel to read it. You can't disagree with what happened." "Why didn't you say something?" he said. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I did tell you," I said. "More than once. Different words, different moments. You said I was too sensitive. I dedicated the book to that." The baby had finished. I shifted her to my shoulder. "Patricia will call your lawyer," I said. "The papers were filed last Thursday. There's not much in them that requires a conversation. Calla, please." "It's a good book, Owen," I said. "Whatever else it is. I think you'll agree when you've had some time with it." I hung up. I put the baby down. She looked at me with the solemn attention she always had in the mornings, processing the room. "We're okay," I told her. She appeared to consider this and accept it. "My name is Calla. I was 28 when Owen's first love came back and 29 when the book published, and somewhere in the space between those two facts I became a person I recognized more clearly than the one I'd been before. That is not the most comfortable thing to say, but it is the accurate one. I had been writing since I was 19. Not seriously at first, seriously came later, the way it tends to come when you stop forcing it and start just doing it every day until it becomes something you can't stop doing. By 23, I had the discipline. By 25, I had a complete draft of a novel I believed in, a book about a woman navigating the specific loneliness of a city she had arrived in without choosing. I sent it to 5 agents. 2 didn't respond. 2 sent form rejections. The 5th said it showed real promise and wasn't quite there yet. I kept the letter from the 5th one. I put it on my desk. I kept writing. The day job was at a small nonprofit communications work, not glamorous but honest and well-matched to the part of my brain that wasn't writing. It left me with evenings. I had a desk that faced the window and a routine and the specific low hum of a person who knows what they're building even when the building is going slowly. I was building something. I knew it. That was enough. Then I met Owen at a dinner party hosted by a mutual friend I barely knew. He was 31. Structural engineer, mid-project on something large. He was the kind of person who makes a room feel steadier without trying, calm, considered, funny in a way that was dry and not performed. We talked for 2 hours at that dinner. He called 3 days later. I picked up. We dated for 2 years. We got married in June in a garden with good food and 40 people, and I was happy at both, and the happiness was not complicated. The first year of the marriage was the genuine article. We were both working. We both cooked sometimes. I was still writing most evenings. The desk was still there, the routine was still intact, and the hour between 9 and 10 was reliably mine in a way that felt sustainable. Year 2 was when the physics changed. Owen's project expanded. The hours became longer and less predictable. He came home tired with the specific heaviness of a person carrying more than they expected, and I adjusted in the way that seemed natural, later dinners, later evenings, absorbing more of the household logistics so that his available bandwidth could go to the project. It seemed like a reasonable distribution at the time. It seemed like the kind of thing couples do when circumstances shift. The problem with reasonable distributions is that they compound. By the middle of year 2, I was managing the grocery system, the household finances, the communication with both sets of parents about holidays and plans, the social calendar, the maintenance schedule for the apartment. None of this had been assigned to me through a conversation. None of it had been decided. It had arrived through the slow physics of one person having slightly more fixed commitments than the other, and the available capacity filling in around them. I noticed this without making a large thing of it, and I mentioned it once. We were having dinner on a Sunday, the kind of dinner that requires time to prepare, and that I had prepared, as I had been preparing most dinners for 8 months. I said that I was finding it harder to get the writing done in the evenings. That by the time everything else was managed, I didn't have much left. Owen said, "You'll find a rhythm again when things settle." I looked at him across the table. He meant it kindly. He was not dismissing me. He was offering a genuinely held belief that the current configuration was temporary and that patience was the correct response. I said, "Okay." Things did not settle, precisely. But I found what he would have called a rhythm. An hour here, 40 minutes there, writing in the margins of a schedule that was not structured around writing. It was not the same as before. I knew it wasn't the same. But I told myself that it was sufficient, and I mostly believed it, and I kept adding to the document quietly, and the document kept growing in the way that documents grow when the accumulation is slow, but the attention is real. In the 3rd year I asked for the first time and the last time for something specific. There was a writer's residency, 2 weeks in the summer, a small group, a coastal location. I had applied and been accepted. I had not told Owen before I applied, which was my first indication that I already knew what the answer would be when I told him after. I told him in March, for a residency in July. He was quiet for a moment. Then, 2 weeks is a long time. "It is," I said. "The summer schedule is already complicated," he said. "We have his mother's visit and the conference in Singapore and the—" "I know," I said. "I've already looked at it. We could move the visit to August." He looked at me with the expression of a person recalculating. "You really want to do this?" "Yes," I said. "Can you defer?" he said. "Until things are a bit more settled?" I looked at the word settled. I had heard it before. It had been settling for 8 months, without arriving. "They won't defer," I said. "It's this summer or not." He said he'd think about it. He thought about it for 2 weeks, and then said that maybe this summer wasn't the right time, that maybe I should apply again next year, that my writing wasn't going anywhere, and we could find a better window. He said it with genuine care, which is what made it precise. He was not trying to shut a door. He was trying to be reasonable about a door he did not fully understand was the one that mattered. I did not go to the residency. I said very carefully that I was disappointed. He said, "I think you're making this bigger than it needs to be. You're too sensitive about the writing." I said, "Okay." I put it in the document that night, the specific way he said it. The phrase, the tone, the genuine bewilderment of a person who had just told me my feelings were inaccurate and fully believed this to be a helpful intervention. Petra's name came up for the first time on a Sunday in April, in our 3rd year. He mentioned it at dinner, offhand. She was back in the city, he said. They were having coffee that week. His first serious relationship, years before we met. He said it in the specific tone of a man who has decided the most advantageous framing is the casual one. I said that was fine. He looked at me. He was checking for something, upset, jealousy, a reason to reassure. I gave him nothing to reassure. "It's just coffee," he said. "I know," I said. I was 3 months pregnant. I was paying very close attention to everything. After that, something changed in the quality of his presence. Not dramatically. Just a new kind of lightness in the evenings, a particular energy that was different from the energy of work, which is heavy and earthbound, and more like the energy of a person who has somewhere to go that they are glad about. I noticed because I paid attention. I had always paid attention. Paying attention had been, for 3 years, one of the primary activities of my life. I did not say anything. I opened the document and started writing with more intention than I had in months. The pregnancy had not been precisely planned, but it had not been a surprise that required recalibration. We had been together for 4 years, married for 2, and the timing was what the timing was. I was glad. I want to say that clearly, because the rest of the story could obscure it. The baby was never part of the problem. She was happening on her own terms, entire and separate, regardless of what Owen was or wasn't doing with his evenings. I told him in January. He was glad too, visibly and straightforwardly, the uncomplicated gladness of someone receiving good news they were ready for. The pregnancy was healthy. Everything in January had seemed fine. By April, Petra was having coffee with Owen weekly. By June, he was coming home late 2 nights a week. By August, my 3rd trimester, 31 weeks, the specific heat of a summer pregnancy with swollen ankles and a desk that faced the window, it was 4 nights, sometimes 5. He had explanations. The project. A bid deadline. A contractor issue that kept running over time. They were not implausible explanations. But I had been paying attention for 4 years, and I knew the difference between the texture of a work excuse and the texture of a personal one. These had the particular smoothness of a story told slightly too readily. The details were always to hand. Men who are managing their schedules honestly do not always have the details to hand. Men who are managing a story do. I did not confront him. I want to explain this because it is the question people ask most. Not because I was afraid. Not because I didn't know what I knew. I didn't confront him because I had learned, through 4 years of living with Owen, that the confrontation would cost me more than him. He was a calm person. He processed conflict by retreating into reasonableness, into a patient, measured tone that made the intensity of my response appear disproportionate. I had been told I was too sensitive. I understood that any confrontation would be filtered through that framing. Kala is upset, Kala is reacting, Kala is making this bigger than it is. I was not going to give him the chance to do that. Instead, every night he came home late, I sat at the desk. 7 months pregnant, then 8. The baby was moving constantly by this point, specific, insistent, like someone knocking on a door. I wrote with my hand on my stomach sometimes, pausing when she kicked, then continuing. She was apparently interested in the process. Or she was hungry. Both things were possible. I wrote everything. The specific tilt of Owen's phone on the dinner table, face up now, in a way it had not been before. The calculated visibility of a man who has decided transparency of one kind will distract from opacity of another. The Sunday morning, he said Petra's name in a story about a project meeting that had nothing to do with Petra. The way he looked at me in the 3rd trimester. Not without affection, but with the specific look of a man sustaining something he has not chosen to end yet, which is different from the look of a man who is choosing you. I wrote the residency conversation. Both times he said settled. The specific patience in his voice that was not patience for me but patience with me. The way you are patient with a person whose perception you do not quite take seriously. I wrote 30 pages one night in October, when he came home at midnight, and I had been at the desk since 9. The baby kicked every 40 minutes. The apartment was quiet except for the typing. I had never written faster or better in my life. I noted this as interesting information about the relationship between constraint and clarity. The baby was born in September. 38 weeks. Healthy, direct, and immediately imperious. She arrived as though she had opinions about how things should be run, which I recognized as familiar. We named her after my grandmother. She slept in blocks of 4 hours and then 3 and then 5, and her sleeping schedule was, given the circumstances, better than it needed to be. Owen was present for the birth and good at it. Steady, practical, the solid ground quality that had drawn me to him in the first place. Afterward, he was attentive and came home on time for 2 weeks. Then 3 late nights. Then 4. I was breastfeeding and sleeping in increments and finishing a novel. I want to say that plainly because I think the simultaneity matters. The baby was 6 weeks old when I sent the manuscript to Nora. Nora was an editor at a literary press, someone I had met at a reading 2 years before, whose work I respected, who had read an early version of the first draft and said, "The voice is already there, keep going." I had kept going. I had sent her sections twice over the past year. She had sent back notes that were exact and encouraging, and that I had applied without argument because they were correct. When I sent the full manuscript, she called me 3 days later. "This is the one," she said. I was at the kitchen table. The baby was asleep. I had been awake since 4. "You're sure?" I said. "Completely sure. Calla, I don't know what this year was like for you, and I'm not asking. But whatever happened is on every page. The voice in this manuscript is different from everything you've sent me before. It's not angrier. It's clearer, like someone who stopped trying to soften what they were saying." I looked at the window. "I stopped softening," I said. "It shows," she said. "The right way." We talked for an hour. She had notes, structural, precise, all correct. I took them. I worked through the manuscript over the following 3 weeks with the baby in a sling and the document open on the kitchen table, making changes that tightened and clarified and made the thing more exactly itself. Writing with a baby attached is inefficient and also, I found, oddly focusing. There is something about a small person requiring your complete presence that burns away everything except the sentence you are currently working on. The book was called The Overnight Hours, which meant the hours she spent waiting, or the hours she spent writing, depending on how you read it. The author name was Calla Reyes, my name before the marriage, the name I had been writing under in my head for 4 years while using Pharaoh professionally. Nora raised it carefully. "Whatever you want to do with the name, just decide early. It affects the copyright paperwork." I said Reyes. I had known it would be Reyes. I had known since about page 40. The dedication gave me the most trouble. Not because I didn't know what to say, because I knew exactly what to say and wanted to say it precisely. I sat in a coffee shop in November with the baby in the pram beside me, and I wrote 12 versions of it in the notes on my phone. I deleted 11. To everyone who told me I was too sensitive, that was the one. Owen did not know about the manuscript. He did not know about Nora, or the deal, or the publication date, or the name on the cover. He had not asked about my writing in 8 months. The last time he mentioned it, he had said you'll get back to it when things settle, which I recognized by this point as a permanent condition dressed as a temporary one. I did not tell him. Publication day was a Thursday in April. I had taken a half day from work. The baby was at my mother's. I had kept the advance copy Nora sent in a drawer for 2 weeks because I wanted to look at it properly on the day itself, not before. I took it out that morning. Held it. My name on the cover. Calla Reyes. The title. The particular weight of a finished thing after years of the thing being unfinished. I called Nora. She said it's out. I said I know. She said how are you? I said good, I think. She said it's a good book, Calla. Whatever comes next, that part is already true. That afternoon I called my lawyer Patricia and told her to file the papers. Today, she said. Today, I said. She filed. Owen didn't find out about the book until the following Tuesday. A colleague sent him a link, a small review in an industry-adjacent publication, the kind that circulates in specific professional circles. The name Calla Reyes meant nothing to him at first. He looked it up. He read the description. He read the first paragraph of the review, which said, Reyes has an exceptional ear for the specific silences of long-term relationships, the things partners decline to say to each other, and the weight those things accumulate. He bought the book. He read it in 2 days. He called on the 3rd morning, at 9, when I was feeding the baby. I let it ring twice. I finished it, he said. I know, I said. Calla. The careful silence. You wrote about us. I wrote a novel, I said. Novels are fiction. The husband in the book is a character, I said. He's recognizable. Characters often are, I said. He was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, quieter, something underneath it I recognized as a kind of genuine distress. Not performance. He was actually distressed. I noted this without softening toward it, which was not coldness. It was just being accurate about what the distress was and was not. Why didn't you tell me, he said. All of this, what you were feeling. Why didn't you say it? I did, I said. Several times. Different ways. I don't remember. The residency, I said. Year 3. I told you exactly what I needed, and you told me the writing wasn't going anywhere. You said it wasn't the priority right now. A silence. The conversation about capacity, I said. Year 2. I told you I was struggling to find time for the work. You said I'd find a rhythm when things settled. Those were, he stopped. They were accurate reports, I said, of what I needed and what I was experiencing. Both times, you told me I was reading it wrong, that I was making it bigger than it was, that I was too sensitive. He said nothing for a long moment. The dedication, he said quietly. Yes, I said. I did tell you. You said I was too sensitive. I dedicated the book to that. The line sat between us. I let it sit. I didn't know, he said. I genuinely didn't know how much. I know you didn't, I said. That's what the book is about. Not the affair. Not Petra. That's the smaller story. The book is about what happens when someone stops being legible to you because you decided in advance what they were capable of feeling. He was quiet for a long time. It's very good, he said finally. His voice was strange, flat and sincere at the same time. I know, I said. I'm sorry, he said. I know that too, I said. Patricia will be in touch about the papers. It should be quick. I hung up. The baby looked at me. I looked back at her. Chapter 1, I said. The one after this. She put her fist in her mouth, which I took as agreement. The months that followed had a specific shape for each of us, which is how endings always go. For Owen, they were the months of reading a book about himself and learning, slowly, how to hold that. He did not contest the settlement. There was not much to contest. I had not taken more than was fair, and I had not left less than was honest. He signed in July. Patricia called me afterward and said clean, which seemed to be the word she used for settlements that reflected accurate accounting rather than punitive impulse. He and Petra did not last the year. I heard this through the ordinary information flow of a shared social world that takes time to unspool. They had been together through the spring and summer, and by autumn something had shifted. The book had circulated in ways that were not aggressive but were persistent, the way a true thing circulates, and social rooms have a specific atmosphere around people they recognize inside a narrative they have now read, and Petra was not comfortable with the atmosphere. Owen confirmed none of this to me directly. He sent one message in September, when the book was longlisted for a small prize. Congratulations. I mean it. I wrote back. Thank you. I put the phone down and went back to the desk. The book's reception was quieter than I had expected and better than I had hoped. Not a bestseller. Not a sensation. Something more durable, a specific and sustained response from readers who recognized themselves in it. The reviews called it precise and honest. One said, Reyes writes the small accumulated damage of a relationship with the attention of someone who has been taking notes for years. I read that one several times. Another said, this is a book about the specific loneliness of not being believed, and it is devastating. I called Nora after I read that one, and she said I told you. I said you did. She said, what's next? I said I'm already 30 pages in on the next one.
She said keep going.
The prize longlisting brought attention that the initial publication hadn't. Not enormous attention, literary prizes at this level produce a specific, considered kind of visibility rather than a wide one, but the kind that lasts. New readers. A reprint. 2 invitations to speak at events I said yes to. I had, somewhere in the previous year, become someone who said yes to events. The divorce was finalized in July. My name reverted. Cala Reyes. Legally and permanently. Patricia filed the name change at the same time as the settlement. I thanked her. She said it was her pleasure, and that she thought I'd done well, which I believed was a professional rather than a personal assessment, and which I was glad to receive either way. I moved in May before the settlement because I found an apartment I could not have not taken. Second floor of a red brick building with tall ceilings and afternoon light, and a study with a window that looked east. The study was the reason. I stood in it during the viewing, and I knew immediately where the desk would go. The letting agent said something about the neighborhood, and I nodded and said I'd take it, and she looked surprised by the speed, and I did not explain that the study window had answered the only question I was asking. The baby's room was yellow. I chose it without consulting anyone. She appeared to have no opinion about yellow, which I respected. It is a Tuesday morning in November. The baby is asleep. She sleeps better than she used to, long, serious blocks, the sleep of a person with an active interior life and a firm relationship with rest. We have both been improving. The study is quiet. The desk is in the corner where the morning light comes in at a low angle. The window faces east, and at 7:40 the light clears the building across the street and moves across the desk in a long, clean line, and I write in it every morning until she wakes. I have been at the desk since 6. She gives me about 90 minutes in the mornings before the day shifts into its other mode, the mode that is hers, which I do not resent. I have written 4 pages this morning, which is good. Not every morning is 4 pages. Some mornings are 1 paragraph that takes 40 minutes and turns out to be the right paragraph. This morning was 4 pages, and I think 3 of them will survive the next draft. The second book is different from the first. Less accumulated, more constructed, built from intention rather than necessity. Nora has read the first 4 chapters. She said, "It's quieter than the first." I said, "I know." She said, "That's not a criticism."
I said, "I know."
She said, "The first one had a quality of speaking after a long silence. This one is someone who has learned they're allowed to speak whenever they want." I thought about that for a day and then wrote it in the document because it was true, and because true things are useful. I am not in the same pain I was in when I wrote The Overnight Hours. I want to say that precisely because the first book required a specific kind of pain, and the second one doesn't, and that difference is not a loss. What comes after pain, when you have processed it correctly, is a kind of open attention, the ability to look at things without needing them to resolve in a particular direction. That is actually a better condition for writing than pain is. Pain focuses the vision, but it narrows it. Attention opens it. Owen's name came up in a conversation last week. A colleague who knows someone who knows him, the ordinary adjacency of a shared city. She said he seemed to be doing well. I said good. She looked at me to see if I meant it. I did mean it. I have no particular investment in Owen not doing well. I have an investment in my own doing well, which is a different and better use of the available energy. The baby is stirring. I can hear it through the monitor, the specific small sounds of someone waking from a dream, the little noises of returning to a body. I finish the sentence I am working on. It is about a woman learning to say what she means without apologizing for the meaning first. It is not autobiographical, but nothing ever entirely isn't. I save the document. I go get her. She is sitting up in the cot with the particular morning expression she has, serious, watchful, already fully herself in a way that I find consistently impressive in someone who has been alive for less than a year. She looks up when I come in. I pick her up. She is warm and solid and entirely here. Owen told me my writing was not the priority. He said it twice. Both times I nodded and absorbed it and carried on writing in the margins of the space he left me. I did not make a scene. I did not argue. I put it in the document. He read the document in 2 days. 2 years of not reading what I was writing. 280 pages in 48 hours once his name was not on the cover. I have thought about this a lot in the months since with the dry precision that replaces anger once the anger has been properly spent. Not bitterness. Just the specific clear-eyed accounting of a person examining a thing that happened. He had 2 years to read the work. He chose not to because the work was not the priority. It took his reflection in a book to make him look. I told him. He said I was too sensitive. I dedicated the book to that. The rest is just publication history. The baby reaches up and grabs a handful of my hair, which is her current preferred greeting.
I say ow.
She looks deeply unrepentant. Chapter 5 today. I tell her. She has no objections. We go to the kitchen. The morning light is doing what it does. The coffee maker starts. She sits in her chair and watches me with her usual expression of sober assessment. The apartment is quiet in the specific way that apartments are quiet when all the noise in them is yours. I have a sentence in my head already, the first one of Chapter 5, which arrived sometime around 4 in the morning, and which I have been holding carefully since then, the way you hold things that came in the night before you have confirmed they are as good as they felt. I think it is as good. I am going to find out at 6 tomorrow morning.